Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I forgot what I was doing. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, and this is my friend, Margaret Clegg. Hey. And I'm in her house. I'm so excited. I'm in Michigan, and I was speaking for the MPI Michigan chapter yesterday and driving down past Margaret's house in Flint. So I said, why not stop by and talk about gluten-free? Because it is Gluten-Free Awareness Month. And Margaret is one of my experts in that. So she's one of my go-to people. So I'm very excited to bring her to you. All right, Margaret, and her company and her website is MI Gluten Free Gal, but the MI is Michigan for MI. Okay. So check her out. But and Margaret's been on the show before, but let's reiterate, what is MI Gluten Free Gal?
So I have celiac disease, and like she was saying, it's Celiac Disease Awareness Month. And so on my website, you will find recipes, you will find facts about celiac disease and living gluten-free, but you'll also find restaurant reviews. That's really popular on my site. And I have the only list of dedicated gluten-free bakers in the state of Michigan. There's like 20 plus on there, plus an embedded map. So if you need to, that way it's a Google map, you can say where you want to go and it'll give you directions. So I would call myself a third generation celiac. My grandmother had it, my dad had it, I have it. So it runs in the family, which I always tell people, if you have a family member with celiac, please get tested, especially first degree relatives, parents, children. And then, I was part of a support group in the Lansing area. That's where I'm from Lansing, Michigan. So is my husband. And I don't know, people had helped me there, and I just felt like I wanted to pay it forward. So ironically, and I talk about this on my website, my dad had celiac, but wasn't following the gluten-free diet. And once I was diagnosed, I really pushed him to do that and do better. So we had a lot of bonding stuff about that. So I just like to help people figure this out because it seems overwhelming. And I think too, one of my biggest concerns, especially right now in the gluten-free, especially on social media, I should say, is it negative posts seem to get the most attention, the most likes, the most shares. And I don't want us to think that a gluten-free diagnosis, a celiac diagnosis is the end of our life. Quite honest, if you think about it, it's the beginning of your life because you're taking gluten-free out of your diet. You're finally feeling better. You finally have the energy again. So I just want to encourage people to be, we're not victims. We can be overcomers kind of a thing.
Right. Oh, I love that because it is, and I know somebody that in Atlanta who removed gluten from their diet, and she was sick for so long and she had no idea. And then when she did it, she's like, oh my gosh. Right. I got my life back.
Right, exactly.
And so I love that you bring that perspective to it. And I think everything in our society right now is the negative gets it.
Right.
And I don't want to talk about lawsuits, and I don't want to talk about, those are facts of life.
Right. But it seems like everybody's like, oh, our bread's too smaller. There's holes in bread. I'm like, there's so many more things we can be talking about. And especially if you're going to talk about stuff online, let's talk about advocacy. Right now, gluten is not required labeling. It's not one of the top 9. So wheat is on there, obviously, but rye and barley, and the biggest issue is barley and malt. Malt is such a sneaky thing. So if you're going to want to talk a lot on social media, there's an actual law right now in committee. So the ALINA Act. So if you're going to try to get likes and shares, do so by trying to promote actual change in this ALINA. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking it up while she's talking about it. Okay.
And the other great thing is not only would gluten, it talks about labeling gluten, but also labeling all allergens in prescription medications.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe I am not saying it right. Maybe it's Alita. I can't remember.
Okay. But yeah, we'll look that up and give you the link.
Yeah.
Well, that's important because also prescription drugs. And then on Monday for Food Allergy Awareness Month or week, we're talking about labeling on alcohol.
Yes. I just thought that would be so helpful too. And again, that's where malt is gluten and it's so often hid in alcoholic beverages. Yep. So again, I think as much as we can share funny memes and stuff, I think we have a great opportunity to try to use our voices to do a heck of a lot more.
Right, exactly. And the labeling of alcohol is currently not there, but somebody was saying yesterday, well, all distilled alcohols would be gluten-free because they've been distilled enough. Yes. So, but not your beers.
No, not your beers.
Not your beers.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people will say that sourdough is gluten-free. And I'm like, nah, unless it's made with gluten-free grains. And I think people confuse fermentation and distillation. And I sometimes wonder if that's why people think, well, the sourdough is just broken it down. I'm like, yeah, but it's different.
Well, and I'm going to have to say that I remember eating sourdough in Atlanta when I first and my allergy is to yeast, and that's why I was eating it.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that, but that doesn't mean that the bread was gluten-free.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And if you love sourdough, there are gluten-free companies that make sourdough. Like Bread Seriously is one that I think they're on California, maybe.
Okay.
They're somewhere on the West Coast. So they make sourdough if you're into that. There you go.
Well, and that's, because if you really want bread in your life all the time, then you need to find the right kind of bread. And it's hard.
Yes. Yeah, it can be.
It's not. And especially for me, because I need it to be yeast free.
Right, exactly. I almost bought gluten-free pita today. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's got yeast. You can't have that. We're having lunch together. We're having curry. And I brought some gluten-free tortillas. Have you ever had tune?
No.
It's garlic spread. It's the most amazing. And it's naturally dairy-free. And it's amazing.
Awesome.
I hope you like garlic.
I do. Oh, I love garlic. Okay. And actually, when I got diagnosed, that was one of the first things I ate a lot of was garlic hummus from Whole Foods. And my mom's like, you need to stop eating it because your body is exuding the garlic.
That's funny.
No, yeah.
That's funny.
Okay. So eating gluten-free now and in general, well, actually, let's just talk about gluten-free. And so people know gluten-free means you can't have wheat, rye, or barley.
Correct.
And it's in a lot of different things.
For sure. Twizzlers.
I was just going to say that.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes and Kellogg's Rice Krispies. Please stop people feeding gluten-free people Rice Krispie treats made with Kellogg's Rice Krispies because they're not gluten-free. Please stop.
Really?
Yeah. People, and I am amazed on my Facebook page. Like I just shared a thing about malt yesterday. And I'm always amazed about the people that say they've been living gluten-free for so many years and had no idea that Kellogg's Rice Krispies or Corn Flakes were not gluten-free. And I'm like, I think, again, it goes back to we know to look for wheat, rye, and barley. And malt is from barley. So because, again, it doesn't say barley malt. Like I think if it said barley malt, I think it would be a huge difference.
Right.
And what consumers see on packaging. But again, right now, that's not required. Well, because barley is not one of the top nine.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I was going to go to a restaurant in my town and tell them they had Brussels sprouts that say gluten-free and then it says malt vinegar on it. Man. And so I'm like, I needed to go tell it's not gluten-free.
Right.
And I ran into somebody that works there and she's like, well, we're not going to disclaim and we're not labeling anything in our restaurant anymore because we don't want to do anything. And which is the complete opposite thing that you need to do. You need to be actually figuring out what you can do.
Right. And that's so interesting because there's a lawsuit against Chick-fil-A, regardless of what you think about Chick-fil-A. They're being sued because it costs extra for the gluten-free bun. And so, which I think is a bad move because if we try to tell them
it's a bad move.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Because what's going to end up happening is what you just said. If we keep saying, oh, we're going to force them to do all these things, the gluten-free option is to not have a bun. You can do that. And then you don't pay extra. And I think if we try to sue all these restaurants to say, oh, you can't charge us extra, then that's what's going to be the happen. They're just going to say, well, we're not going to offer options anymore.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and then that's the sad thing and I was having a conversation on the drive down here, is that the population of people with food allergies and celiac disease is growing.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we're feeding the market. I want you to make money. And I want you to, hello, Allergy Dragon. Martha and Cheryl are on Instagram. Hello, ladies.
Hi, Allergy Dragon. They recently followed me, I think, on Instagram.
She's awesome. She's an awesome chef. Thank you. If you guys have any questions for Margaret or for me, let me know. But the market is growing and it's an opportunity for you to make more money. We don't want you. Yes, you're going to have to learn a little bit new process to make sure that you're feeding us safely. But if you can grow your business by feeding us, then you're
going to build a loyal following. It's so going to be in your benefit.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't eat out. Well, I do eat out by myself sometimes, really. But like, we don't eat out by ourselves. You're going to get a whole family or a whole group of friends. Right. Like, you need to think about it from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, yesterday in my presentation to MPI Michigan, I'm like, hey, do you have any volunteers that would be willing to come up on stage with me for me to do this demonstration? And I had a woman who was allergic to gluten or I don't know if she was celiac. Okay. And then I had another one, corn, wheat, and soy. And then another one, pineapple, gluten. And so my demonstration, like, I couldn't feed any of them. So, and then I handed them a plate of fruit, which is what typically hotels give us when we have celiac disease or anything. And one of them was like, well, I'm allergic to pineapple. I can't have that. Right. So it was really illustrating that we have to think through it, right? And figure out ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's like, I use coconut milk instead of what I usually use. I have this recipe for donut muffins on my website that usually turns out great, and they don't look like they normally do. But like, even I accommodate, because people accommodate me, I try to accommodate others. Like, I even have a few top 8 allergen-free or top 9 allergen-free recipes on my website. Not a lot, but a few. And I'm like, if I can figure out how to do it here in my own house, then it can be done.
Hello. I have followed Margaret on Facebook for a long time as well. Yay! And then Ramels Cater for You. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about eating gluten-free. And we are talking Michigan too, but we're talking gluten-free in general as well. And so, okay, what are the biggest challenges right now? I mean, you've been gluten-free
20 plus years.
20 plus years. So you've seen a lot. And I've been 2003, so 20 plus years. Yeah. So a lot of change.
Oh, for sure. It's a lot easier now than it used to be.
Yeah.
A lot easier. So many more products.
And they're shelf-stable products.
Yep.
And so do you find that easier to do or eating out easier to do?
So for me and my followers know, I'm doing a lot of caregiving for my mom who lives in what we call downriver, south of Detroit. And then my mother-in-law, we're doing caring for her as well, which is in Lansing, which is the opposite way an hour. And so I realized having the Char sandwich rolls, because they're shelf stable, I can just leave those at my mom's and don't have to have a whole package of bread. I mean, there are some things that I just obviously put in her freezer. Because she lives alone. My stepfather passed in September. So, and she can't cook because she hurt her back and had a stroke and all this stuff. So it's easy for me to put some frozen stuff in there, but it definitely gets interesting when I try to cook dinner because she doesn't have all the spices and all the stuff that you'd usually have that I have at my disposal here. Right. So it's definitely, sometimes people are anti-processed food, but I'm like, you know what? Sometimes in certain situations, it's what makes life a heck of a lot easier, especially when you're living with dietary restrictions.
Oh, totally. So. All right. And Ramsel Cater for You said on Instagram, absolutely. There has been such an increase in products and alternatives over the last few years, which is absolutely remarkable. 100% agree.
And I think it's interesting though, because when I started 20 plus years ago, we were all eating rice cakes and a certain brand of bread that I'm not going to name because a lot of us don't like it. But now that I have so many bread products, there are times I'm like, you know what I really want? I just want a crunchy rice cake. I just crave it. Give me some peanut butter and some sliced bananas on top or cream cheese with some sliced strawberries. So it's funny how that comes full circle because some days I really crave a rice cake.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Oh, no, they're good. These are good.
I know. Yeah. Have you had I don't know if those are dairy-free or not. Lundberg has a chocolate-covered rice cake, and they have a lemon one, too.
Oh, wow.
So, but I don't know if they're dairy.
I just do the non-flavored ones. Martha said, ever since 2009, much larger selection of gluten-free. Yeah. Okay, so eating out, and your blog is all about eating around Michigan, gluten-free. So what are some really cool... Well, do you want to talk about the bad things you're still seeing or the good things first? Or let's mix them up.
I don't know. I think a lot of restaurants have become much more aware. There was a restaurant I went to in Ann Arbor and they had gluten-free on their window, but they cooked everything on the same griddle. And I was yep, see you later, bye. That's not going to work. The same flat top. Because I'm yes, you can try to scrape it, but scraping is not the same as washing.
No.
So, but there are a lot. I think one of my concerns is that I want restaurants, if you're going to do gluten-free, be proud of it. Like you'll have restaurants that don't want to disclaim it because they think people won't come to their business.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I get that. I get that. I do be proud of what you do. I think my biggest issue now in the gluten-free space, and we've talked about this a lot, is oats. Because they're not all oats are the same. You know, I have a whole article on my website about that too, about mechanically sorted oats and commodity oats and purity protocol oats. So that I have my list of bakers, and now I've had to update the questions that I ask. Like, do you use oats? Do you use oat milk? Do you use gluten-free wheat starch? Because I'm not allergic to wheat, but I know I have followers who follow me and eat gluten-free because they have a wheat allergy. And so I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm as thorough as I can be. So it's interesting that, like, in some ways it's gotten easier, but sometimes in some ways it's gotten harder because now we have to ask more questions about things we didn't have to ask before.
That's a really good point, because if chefs are becoming creative, they also have to learn that there's other ingredients that actually do contain it. Right. I do have one thing that I want to show. I'll show you, but the name. But
did you eat there? I've heard good things about them.
Yes. So I'm going to show you this picture. Hopefully it comes out. So I'm not putting the restaurant name on there, but it says waffle fries and it says gluten-free, dairy-free, vegetarian. And then in parentheses below, it says a shared fryer. So that makes those French fries
not safe for me.
Not gluten-free.
Gosh, that is. Oh,
yeah.
Hate
so
that.
I thought it was interesting that they put the shared fryer on there.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah, to be educational to their customers. But I'm like,
interesting because my dad used to eat there, and I guarantee he probably ordered.
Really?
It's been 4 years since my dad has passed, and many years past that since he's been on the island.
Yeah,
but because that was the one place he would eat all the time. At that restaurant, I stopped myself.
I don't say it out. I don't like to say the names of the restaurants if there's something that needs to be improved.
Right.
All right. Ram Sulficator for you just said, which is why labeling has made without gluten-containing ingredients so important, especially in restaurant spaces, as wheat spores are in the air. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but it depends on if you're, okay, let's ask this question. So if I'm taking bread out of a bag to make a sandwich, it's not the same as making the bread.
No. Because we know that the flour particles can linger in the air for up to 48 hours.
Right.
Again, there was this bakery I was going to try to get you stuff from, but I was like, but she can't have yeast, and I know they make bread, and I'm like, I wanted to get you stuff, but like I would feel awful if I got you something that made you sick. So sorry.
No, that's okay. It's better for my belly.
Yeah.
So there's protocols that you can take.
Right.
If you're not Panera and making fresh bread, or anybody like that's making fresh bread in your kitchens, that's one thing. But bakeries have been using flour.
Right. And actually, so a lot of the bakers on my gluten-free baking list are home bakers.
Okay.
And I specifically ask questions. And like, if they're using wheat flour in the house, then they don't go on my list just because of that. Unless they have I have one person that has literally a whole separate kitchen at their house.
Oh, wow.
Because they have like an old farmhouse.
Okay.
So it's big enough. But like, if they say no wheat flours ever use it in my home, but like my husband or my spouse has regular bread and they have their own separate toaster, and like my kids like goldfish crackers, so they have little packs of those, but like they're not ever, no gluten is ever used in the kitchen space. Like I'm cool with that because if you think about it, like we think about restaurants, like I think about Red Robin, like obviously there's lots of stuff there, but there's no like free floating flour that I'm aware of. And they've gone to, I actually just talked to one of the guys from Menu Nutrient. I had a good Zoom call with him.
Yeah.
So we know there are restaurants that can do protocols right in a shared kitchen and stuff that care about us. So that's how I feel with bakers, except for, when there's wheat flour in the air, then I'm like, you know what? No, because like there's a restaurant chain here in Michigan where they have gluten-free pizza, but they make their own dough. So I'm like, that's a no for me, but I will order a gluten-free burger because that's a separate, the bun is separate. They take it out of a bag, the protocols. So, yeah.
Right. Martha's offering to make me some
Irish soda bread.
That would be awesome. I want to go back to what you said there a second ago, the protocols. I'm like, there are so many people recently, because I'm planning menus for events. And they're like, well, we can't do that because we're not a nut-free environment or we're not a gluten-free environment, but you can set up protocols. And maybe you're not making the gluten-free pastry or the vegan pastry in the bakery. You're using a different kitchen. Right. You can do that.
Right.
And it's going to be safe or it can be safe.
Right. Yeah. There are ways you can accommodate again, going back to the shelf stable stuff, like you can have the bread made someplace else and open it in your kitchen. And there are ways to do it. Because like there's a local small restaurant here locally that they have a separate prep station. They have gluten-free pancakes, they have gluten-free bread. So it's all prepped there. Although it kills me because it's a brunch place and their hash browns and their potatoes are not gluten-free. I'm like, what did you do?
Right. Well, yeah.
But it's just because they bought it. It's bought from Cisco or from wherever, Gordon's, who knows. But yeah, they're a small restaurant. But even they know the proper protocols, the simple steps. And I've eaten there twice and been perfectly fine and safe. And they have a really cool orange juice machine. You can watch them press it. It's just this giant thing. So
awesome. Hello, Juanita. You just joined us. Hello, my friend. I'm talking to Margaret from MI Gluten Free. I always say MI.
Yeah, I always say MI, but
my Gluten Free Gal, which this is Margaret right here. And we're talking about eating gluten free in Michigan. Okay, so really good things that you've been seeing. Did we already?
Yeah, you already asked me that.
Okay.
But
bad things. What are you still seeing that you wish would? And bad things is wrong. What are things that you see that can easily be changed?
Okay, one thing, and again, this goes back to what you're talking about next week with alcohol. Gluten-reduced beer is not safe for people with celiac disease. There's one brewer here in Michigan that makes a gluten-reduced, and restaurants carry it because they don't know the difference.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, ugh, and I won't say that brewer's name on air because then they'll probably come after me. But, and again, and it goes back to like malt and testing and you can't test for hydrolyzed malt. And that's why the FDA says, no, you can't label anything gluten-free that started with barley malt, because it's too hard to test for. That irks me a lot. And like I said, oats and oat milk. Yeah. But I mean, there's just a lot of, it's encouraged. This place here, it's in Burton. It's just two brothers.
Right.
And it's a small place. And like, if they can get it, there's just a lot of positive change, I would say. And it's interesting. You'll still have cities that have lots of options. And then like here, I love to support local, but most of the safe stuff for me is chains. It's Red Robin, it's McAllister's, it's Culver's.
Wow. That's a sandwich shop.
Because they have huge, giant baked potatoes that are amazing. And they have gluten-free bread.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And they have gluten-free potato salad. My husband hates potato salad. So I'll go there and just get potato salad for myself.
And they make that on property?
The bread? No, the bread is.
Or no, the potato salad? They make that fresh?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
But like the bread they use, they're not making the bread fresh.
Right. So that's not flying in the air. Exactly. Okay.
So.
You had a question okay. So what are some questions that, and I know you're going to give us a link to some questions, but what are some questions that you ask restaurants when you're going out to make sure that they're safe?
So, one thing you can automatically ask is, do you have a dedicated gluten-free prep space? Because if they do, then you kind of know that they know.
Right.
Like, if they have a whole separate prep space and separate pans and stuff, then like, if they know that, then they probably get it.
Right.
Do you have a dedicated fryer? Do you have a dedicated waffle maker? There's this really great restaurant on the west side of Michigan that has zucchini bread waffles.
Wow.
And it's the only, and they're almond flour based, I think. And it's the only waffles they have. It's the only waffles they make. And
wow.
They even have, didn't try them because my belly was full. They had gluten-free crab cakes too, which is really hard to find.
They are the good ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So like on my blog post that I have about asking questions, like I break it down into categories. Like, if you're ordering pizza, like, do you have a separate spot for, like, the toppings that you use? Do you get them out fresh? And do you have a convection oven? Because if it's a convection oven, then you're getting, like, Jersey Mike's. I go to Jersey Mike's a lot, especially down by my mom. Like, what barriers are you putting in place? Do you have a separate station? Like, as your mayo, like, are you spreading it or are you squeezing it? That one in Woodhaven, Michigan is phenomenal.
And that's... Well, even in my own house, right? My mom takes hi mom, sorry, she's not on here, but she takes the little thing and then she swipes it on her bread and then she puts it back in there or whatever. And she's like, here, make your sandwich. I'm like, no, so I've started to use hummus on my sandwiches
she doesn't like it.
She'll eat it occasionally, but you're not dipping her knife into that. But like, the squeeze bottles of ketchup and mustard are fine, but I'm like, her mayonnaise, I'm like, that drives me bonkers. I need my own, I don't need mayonnaise.
And seeing like me, because my husband doesn't like it, like I can just buy the little squeezable of the Hellmann's.
Yes,
it's all I need.
Yes.
Like other questions, like you can, and probably should ask, because I know it's not a nationwide thing, but like Michigan has a law, much like, I think it's Massachusetts.
Yep.
Was it the chef that got it? And I can't think of his name, and he's on like Food Network or something. Ming. Yeah, Chef Ming. So in Michigan, there is a law that requires that at least one person be served safe hours and trained in every restaurant.
Yep.
So I'm glad that it's a requirement in Michigan. But like I'll ask, like, do you have a pick that says gluten-free or allergen? Like a wooden pick. You have those. You know, who brings my meal out to me? Is it a manager, or is it just you? I mean, and it's fine if it's the wait staff and they know the proper protocol.
Right.
But those are just some of the questions. The one I ask all the time is probably the first, like, does your staff know to change their gloves? Because if they don't, I'm like, that is the bare minimum. Right. And if they can't do that, then I'm like, peace out. See you later. I'm going to go someplace else.
This is the meal I got yesterday.
Oh, that's sad.
The meeting planner ordered me a gluten-free meal, and that is what I got. No vegetables on the side, nothing else. Oh, I did get a plate of fruit, which is like 15 blueberries, pineapple, mango, or not even mango, melons. Yeah. Oh, I love mango, but I hate melon.
Ironic.
Yeah. So exactly. We could eat off the plate. But, you know, that's the thing. I'm like, if that's all you're going to make me, right? I don't want to eat here. And it had no even salt and pepper on it. I mean, it was just
probably because they're just so nervous about making you sick that it's like, we'll give you nothing.
Right. Yes. All right. So what other questions do you have? I just know the word bouillon.
Yeah. Like, do you use bouillon? Like, do you use soy sauce? If it's soy sauce, is it tamari and is it gluten-free? Worcestershire sauce? Like here in the United States, because I get people who argue with me because they're not from the United States. Like in the United States, Lee & Perrins is gluten-free. That is not the case in England.
Oh,
and
really?
In the UK, Lee & Perrins contains gluten, but it does not here. You know, do you use a separate colander for straining pasta? Do you use fresh water to cook your pasta? Because some places don't. And they cook the gluten-free pasta in the water that the regular pasta was in. And there's a certain Italian restaurant chain that I will not eat at because they're notorious for not using fresh water. I'm not going to say their name. You can
Google it.
Guess.
Yes. Yeah.
You can get like a guess.
Well, and that's an issue. So if you're a meeting planner thinking about this, right, and you're going to serve pasta, are they going to serve pasta to the gluten-free pasta to everybody, which would make that issue go away.
Right.
But if you're going to serve two different ones, does your kitchen staff know that they have to make that gluten-free pasta in a separate dish?
Right.
Or a pot with separate water, right? You can't reuse it. But one of the things that I get annoyed by too is, you said gloves, but it's also your aprons and your towels. Like if you're, I guess there's not really any gluten when you're making an omelet, but
like for you, if they're using cheese, like, so I will be dead honest. This is what I did today. I went and bought new washcloths because I actually needed some, but like I went through and made sure to rewash all the dishes we're going to plan to have for lunch just to be safe, because we'd used them last night and it had cheese in it.
Right.
So like I made sure to wash them again, made sure I rewashed like the spoons, the knives, because I don't have dedicated separate anything.
Right.
But I'm like, if I can figure it out here at home, other people can figure it out. We're having curry for lunch today, by the way. If you want, she can drop that link too.
Yes, I really am excited. All right. So it's the same response when I guest eats plant-based, the immediate send out a salad. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's not a good thing. Like, let's be more creative. And actually today I was thinking about it on my drive down, that like go take a vegan pastry class online, right? There's a couple of people I can think of. I can't come up with their names. Fran is one who does a vegan pastry class. Learn how to do that. The vegan pastry classes are probably using wheat and still using almonds and tree nut, things like that. But go find a gluten-free baker that's online and use their recipes. And hopefully they've tested them enough that they're viable. But work with them. Find somebody that
I would be more than happy to help. And actually, for me, what I prefer to do is try to connect bakers in the state of Michigan to places that want to cure dessert, and so they could use a local, hopefully local,
right,
Michigan baker,
right,
I actually had that happen last week. We got pizza from Mancino's, which is a chain in Michigan, but like they're all really franchises. So each place is different. So some have gluten-free pizza, some don't. I was just talking to the owners because she doesn't have a gluten-free dessert. And I'm like, oh, there's actually a dedicated gluten-free bakery in Michigan. And she has corporate accounts. So that would be the perfect solution. So I just gave Nikki, the baker, the phone number for the pizza place. They can go from there. But I mean, yeah, I'd be more than willing to talk to any restaurant if they want to have ideas. And that's the thing too. Like sometimes you can make very simple changes to make something gluten-free or dairy-free. Very simple. So, and sometimes it's a matter of talking to someone like you or I that know what the options are. And then like, oh, well, yeah, I could just do that. Like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Well, and Martha just put in here, some places add starch or flour to make an omelet fluffy. So always ask.
IHOP puts pancake batter in their omelets.
Yes, they do. Yes. I am trying to copy and post your comments over into the other feeds too from my Instagram. Yeah. So you do actually have to ask that question. And I'm going to jump allergy wise here too. If you're looking at scrambled eggs, you have to ask, are those scrambled eggs dairy free? Right. And there are so many hotel properties that label eggs or label things that have mayonnaise saying that they contain dairy.
Because it has eggs in it.
And just for everybody, if they don't know, dairy comes from cows and eggs come from chicken.
I was just talking to my husband about this yesterday. Seriously.
Well, and I think Celiac and Beast put that out years ago. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so smart because people do. They think they
well, and then we get it because grocery stores put eggs in the dairy section because it's refrigerated.
Right. Yes.
But I'm like,
that would be why. Yeah. Well, and my friend Corey, who works for Whole Foods, says he gets a lot of questions. He works in the main front section. So many questions every day. Do you have gluten? Do you have vegan mayonnaise? He's like, He's like, or no, dairy-free mayonnaise, not vegan mayonnaise. But he's like, well, mayonnaise is dairy-free because it's made from eggs.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm getting hot. This is what 56 does.
Yeah. Girl, I feel you. I'm only 45. Yeah. But I'm already, anyway.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation.
So anybody, Martha, with what you're doing and hello, invisibly allergic, what are you seeing and actually challenges from your perspective, from meeting professionals, especially Ramsel Cater for you, thinking about that, what are the challenges that you're seeing from guests? And Margaret, the people who are not asking those questions, and even last night, I'm going to say I ordered my food from room service and I said, I need a hamburger without the bun. And I didn't say because I was gluten-free. I just said I need a hamburger without the bun. And a lawyer who I have on next week, he's going to talk about a case that came about, whereas the person didn't disclose that they had a mustard allergy. But they said, I just want it without mustard. So you do need to clarify because they have all kinds of allergen protocols in place. And they didn't put those allergen protocols in place because they didn't say it was an allergen. They just asked for no mustard.
Well, and I talk like one of the other questions or things I put in my blog post about questions, like we need to call and ask these questions when the kitchen is not packed and busy.
Yes.
I always tell people call between 2 and 4. That's after the lunch rush, before the dinner rush. You're more likely to get somebody who can actually take the time to sit down and ask, answer all of your questions. And we can't just wait till we get there and be like, oh, do this for me.
Right.
And like, you're going to have a much better outcome if you talk ahead of time.
Right. Yep.
So, and because I'm sure like when I see, I'm going to Sweets and Snacks next week. I'm not staying in a hotel there or whatever, but like, we need to be forthcoming. And like, and when people plan events, you can say, does anybody have any food allergies? And then you need to speak up. And I think connecting to that, like we have a problem, like we see so many, when a food allergy death happens, so often it's teens because they're nervous about speaking up about for themselves, or they don't want to be a burden or whatever.
Right.
But we have to learn that we're valuable enough for our needs to be taken care of.
Well, and I think it was Fair posted a really good video today of a young boy, and probably under 12, eating at I think it was Olive Garden.
Oh, I saw, and he was like ordering for himself.
And he goes, said to the waiter, do you mind writing down my allergens? And he's got like 6. And it was just his videotaping his interaction with the waiter, and the waiter was off camera. but answering his questions so that you could hear. And it was just great. And I loved the fact that it was giving that kid the authority to ask for himself.
Right.
And say, hey, and then he tested the food and whatever. And then his mom told him to eat his broccoli.
Right.
But I thought that was great because we do need to do that. And I actually said that a couple of weeks ago at the Food Allergy Safety Summit. We were talking to a group of university chefs and food service providers. And I'm like, this is great that you have this dedicated, free from, what do you call it, buffet section for these kids to come and eat. But you also have to teach them how to eat when they leave your campus.
Right.
Because in one way you're pampering them, but you're giving them something safe, but you also need to educate them how to eat.
Right. And I think that's on parents too, but I do know that the University of Chicago Celiac Disease Center has a new program called Transitions that does exactly that, how to teach teenagers to transition from high school to college and being their own advocate. Because at some point, I think I get it when our kids are really little, especially when they're like infants and toddlers and they're at the stage where they put everything in their mouth, like we have to protect them, obviously, because they don't know how to do it for themselves.
Right.
But every step that we can take to help them learn how to advocate for themselves is a good thing.
Yes, exactly. So. Now that's awesome. Transitions. I think a lot of kids need it for a variety of different things.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely. On our questionnaire, that is one of our main questions. Are there any dietary needs, restrictions, allergens for you or your guests? We also list examples. That's fantastic. Because as a caterer, you need to know those questions, or you need to know the answers to that, because you don't want to be, when Margaret shows up and she says, oh, gluten free, I'm celiac, what do you have? And you were not told as the caterer, you look like the bad person.
Right. But you couldn't possibly prepare without advance notice.
Exactly.
Right. And I think about that too. Like, this is not hospitality related, but it is still food related. Like, hospitals, I swear, are notorious for not meeting the needs of people with food allergies. But like Amy Keller, who's a registered dietitian in Ohio, like I have an interview I did with her. It's on my website. It's like from 4 years ago. But like, think about if you're going to a hospital, like, don't wait till you get there and say after surgery or whatever, like, I need gluten-free. Like, there are people, you can contact the dietitian of the hospital prior to you going in the hospital.
If you know you're going to the hospital.
Right. No, obvious. But if you're going in to have a baby, like, you're going to have, you've got 9 months, so you can prepare. Or like if you're scheduled for hip replacement or whatever. You're right. Like, you don't always know ahead of time. But if you do, there are things you can do. Just like talking to a hotel that's going to have a conference, talk to the hospital ahead of time. Talking about colleges. I get this. I've gone to a couple of universities in Michigan, and the biggest complaint from registered dietitians is they get people that slam the university for not having options, but that person has never once gone to the special needs or dietitian on campus ever and said, I have this issue. So I think we need to remind people, like, if you're going off to college, like, yes, we talk about like your dietary restrictions shouldn't prevent you from going to the college you want to go to. But let's be honest, we know that's going to be a deciding factor where a lot of people go. But that's on us to search out, like, say, find the people you need to talk to and say, what can you do? So not just talking to restaurants. We need to think about talking to hospitals, talking to universities, and advocating for ourselves. But again, we can't just show up and be like, okay, feed me. It's not something, and because you live this way, it's not something you can easily do in your house, depending on where you live, what you can get at the grocery store, but you do. And actually being at that Food Allergy Safety Summit with FAIR and Nutrinfo, the university, there were so many school dietitians there. It was awesome. That's great.
And they
wish I had been there.
I mean, they had really good, the number of people students that they work with on a daily basis when they're coming into school, as well as throughout the entire year or years that they're there.
Because I'll just use MSU, Michigan State University, as an example, because not only do they have gluten-free options and multiple dining halls, but they have a top 9 allergen-free dining hall as well. But like, they have a lot during the summer. There's tons of football camps, sports camps, whatever, writers camp. There's a writers camp for teens in the summertime. So they try to accommodate those people as well. When universities get it, and I think the lawsuit. Gosh, that's like
Leslie University.
Like, what, 6-7 years ago now?
2012, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I'm old. But so, I know that's a big concern, and I have followers to ask me that. And that's why I wanted to talk to, and I feel bad now for Mike from Menu Train Pro, I think his name is Mike.
Okay. I know Betsy, the founder.
Oh, but like, I want to talk more because I want to visit more Michigan universities because I know that's a big anxiety that a lot of parents have. So, because like I went to Central Michigan University, and our biggest rival is Western Michigan University. Like, that's like head-to-head rival. And Western Michigan is awesome. Just like I had like broiled salmon and roasted potatoes for lunch. I'm like, that's not what I had when I was in college.
That's much different than that piece of chicken I got.
Yes. And I'm like, and so if the university can figure it out, like, hotels can figure it out. Right. Come on.
Yeah. And they're real. Well, we were at University of Maryland, and oh my gosh, I don't even remember. I know I have it somewhere. How many meals they were feeding on a daily basis.
Oh, it's insane.
Which is more than what a hotel is ever feeding, even at one sitting. And so Ramsdell Cater for You just said there are a lot of campuses now that definitely have cater to dietary needs. I worked for Bon Appetit Management Company, and we were constantly trained on the top 8 allergen and offering options for dietary. That's awesome. And I'm from listening to you or reading your comments, you've taken that to what you're doing now. So thank you so much for taking that education for that. But it is, I'm scrolling through and see if I wrote the note. The University of Maryland was mind-boggling on how much food they make. But it's, if they can do it for thousands of kids that they're serving on a daily basis, then hotels can definitely do it. It was a really cool tour. Okay, so where's your favorite place to eat or your favorite city to eat in Michigan gluten-free?
So I actually have a couple of posts on my website that's guides like per city. It's like, obviously people want to know what can I eat in Detroit because Detroit is Michigan. Especially when they had the NFL draft recently. So we're getting some big press there.
Almost 3 times the size of the draft, like 3 years ago. Yeah.
And you want to know something on a side note, the structure they built, the big metal structure that was taken apart, and part of it is being used for an animal rescue for spay. And so they're repurposing all the structure to other, like to Habitat for Humanity and all that stuff. So it's not just like being picked somewhere, but that's an aside.
Sustainability. Yes.
So Detroit, there's lots of great places in Detroit. I'm trying to think my favorite in Detroit. The place I love the most now, I had to close their kitchen. It was a bar. Oh, like in Detroit, there's a place called Breadless. And like all the sandwiches are made like in collard greens or whatever. And my husband and I went and we're like, I don't know about this. I'm like, it was so good. It was so good. So there's one in downtown Detroit and one in Rochester.
Okay, I'll be in Detroit in June.
For a couple of days?
Yeah.
All right, girlfriend. Yeah. We're going to be there. Yes. So that's Detroit. Grand Rapids. If I were to pick, say, one city to go to for a vacation that has gluten-free options, Grand Rapids, hands down. For sure. Absolutely. Wow. There used to be a really dedicated gluten-free support group there, and they work with restaurants, so there's so many options. Then I have a post about Traverse City. Traverse City is very popular in northern Michigan on the water. I'm actually going to be posting about a restaurant called Middle Coast Brewing. Okay. Which sounds ironic, but they're not gluten-free options, but they have a separate gluten-free prep station. The owners have like celiac disease. Like they're dedicated fryer.
Is there beer gluten-free?
No, they do not have. But they have seltzer. Okay. So, and to be honest, I think beer is disgusting. I don't even like beer. So I'm like, yay, seltzer for me. I mean, most seltzers should be gluten-free. Watch out. There's some, going back to the malt thing, there's some that are questionable. So Jasmine, my dog's whining to go outside. You're going to have to wait there. So Middle Coast Brewing, there's a really cool place called Taproot Cider that they have hard ciders and really interesting menu. And of course, there's Third Coast Bakery, dedicated gluten-free and dairy-free bakery, which we
What is the name of that one?
Third Coast Bakery, and they ship.
And where is that again?
That's in Traverse City, Michigan.
Traverse City. Okay.
Just if you don't want to be crowded by people, do not go during Cherry Festival time because it is insanely packed.
Erica just joined us. Hi, Erica. Hi, Erica. Celiac and the Beast.
So I have an Ann Arbor post because people go to U of M. Okay. So,
do you have a favorite place in Michigan to eat gluten-free? I mean, you just named a whole bunch, but
I like Anna's House. It's a chain in Michigan. So they started in Grand Rapids on the West Coast. There's going to be 2 in Lansing. There's some in the Metro Detroit area. They have a dedicated prep station, lots of vegetarian, vegan options. They're a brunch place. They close at 3.
Okay.
So for dedicated, we have like about a dozen dedicated gluten-free restaurants in Michigan. I love 1923 in Ann Arbor. It's in an old double-decker bus.
Oh, cool.
Yes. And they also have a building as well, so you can sit inside when it's cold or when it's hot and there's air conditioning. Yeah. But everything there is gluten-free, and the owners are so sweet. There is a Papa Chops in Grand Rapids dedicated to gluten-free, so French fries, burgers, mozzarella sticks, all the fried stuff that people miss.
Right, yeah.
Paisano's in Ann Arbor, gluten-free tiramisu. It's really good.
Okay, on that note, and I think I've told this before, but my financial advisor also owns an Italian restaurant in North Carolina. And his wife, I don't think she's celiac, or she's gluten sensitive, non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And he's the one responsible for making the cheesecake for the restaurant. And she's like, I want the cheesecake. Can you make it gluten-free? And it's crustless cheesecake. And he's like, what do you mean, can I make it gluten-free? And he looked at the recipe, and the amount of flour in it was so minute that he just replaced the flour with the gluten-free flour. I don't know which brand, but he taste tested it, had a couple of other people taste tested it. Now there are people that come to the restaurant and buy the entire full cheesecake and take it home with them, because it's so good and they can have it.
That also makes me think of a more Trattoria in Grand Rapids. I love it, honestly, more for Chef Jenna, who is the owner, who is like the kindest. She actually has a nonprofit called Food Hugs where she helps people in need.
Oh, nice.
So, but they have lots of gluten-free options. It's an Italian restaurant, and her husband's from Italy. So,
so she's asking for us the links to the restaurant. So we will do that. Yeah. Margaret, I'll post the links to the post that she has about each city.
Yeah.
In there, and they should be in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, ma'am, we are at a good 50 minutes. Wow, we could just stand here.
I know.
I could hang out with you, but I have to eat lunch, and then I have to go catch a plane to go to Omaha. I'm going to speak at the Society of Government Meeting Professionals. So I'm going to teach meeting plan at government meeting professionals about how to feed us. So, okay, so my last question that I always ask, and I've asked you this in the past because you've been a guest before, but what does safe, sustainable, and inclusive mean to you when you're thinking about eating?
Safe, sustainable, and did you say inclusive?
Yes.
Like safe to me is a dedicated prep station.
Okay.
But like I think inclusivity is important. Like I think one of the things that I'm most proud of in my advocacy is not, obviously I love my followers. I am very blessed with lots of great followers. But what I love even more are my actual friends that live here in Flint area. And like, for example, my friend Jen, she's a substitute teacher and she has kids in her class with dietary restrictions. So she'll always message me and like, is this safe? Is that safe? That's like, I want to make sure she has her daughter, 10. I can't believe she's that old. She's like, I'm having this birthday party and 2 of the kids have celiac. Like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Is this safe? So my friend Alicia, who lives in Davison, where my husband teaches, like she asked me questions because of her kids' friends. And I think, like, I know inclusivity can happen.
Right.
But because there are people who are compassionate that don't have to ever live that in their normal everyday life.
Right.
So I know it's possible. And I think it's important too. And I've asked this before on my Facebook page, like, who is that person that goes above and beyond? Tell them thank you, because not everybody is like that. So you need to be willing to let them know, like, how much that means to you.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Oh, I love
does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I love that answer. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is Margaret Clegg from MI Gluten Free Gal. I always want to say Michigan. I'm going to put you can reach her. There's her website. And you can find recipes and different places to eat in Michigan around that. And check her out. Follow her on Instagram. Same handle on Instagram. And Facebook, right? Yep.
And if there's something we've talked about that you want a link or more information, just DM me and I'll send you links.
Awesome.
Too. So,
well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excited.
I know.
Next week is Food Allergy Awareness Week. I am going to do 4 broadcasts next week. Monday, we're talking about alcohol. Tuesday, I'm talking to a lawyer. Wednesday, I'm talking to a chef from the UK who actually has to manage allergens for top 14 allergens that are regulated in the UK. And then Thursday, I have the CEO of FAIR.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Which
I'm
is
very excited.
A new person because the person that was before isn't the person.
No, and she has food allergies. And she has food allergies, and she's developed additional food allergies as an adult in the last year. So
the previous CEO of FAIR, if it's who I'm thinking of, like he actually is at U of M.
Oh, really?
I think if it's who I'm thinking of. The
previous CEO. Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, until then, until Mondays at 1, the rest of them are at 12. Until then, stay safe and eat well. And thank you for listening and following. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.